Karen Whitmore nearly choked on her morning latte when she spotted the 3-foot-tall dandelions swaying mockingly in her neighbor's front yard. The ceramic mug slipped from her manicured fingers, shattering against her pristine marble countertop as she watched a family of rabbits hop brazenly across what used to be a respectable suburban lawn. But the final straw came when she witnessed Mrs. Henderson from 42 Maple Street actually watering a patch of wild clover while humming what sounded suspiciously like "Worn Free." "Absolutely not," Karen muttered, her perfectly styled blonde bob trembling with indignation. She'd been HOA president for 3 years, and Willowbrook Estates had maintained its reputation as the most immaculate neighborhood in the county. She wasn't about to let some hippie nature lover destroy property values with her jungle experiment. Karen stormed across the street, her heels clicking against the pavement like a metronome of doom. She found Helen Henderson kneeling beside a cluster of wild bergamot, gently encouraging a butterfly to land on her finger. "Helen, we need to talk," Karen announced, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. Helen looked up with dirt-smudged cheeks and the kind of genuine smile that made Karen's eye twitch. "Oh, good morning, Karen. Isn't it wonderful? I've counted 7 different bird species just this week, and yesterday I saw my first painted lady butterfly in years." "What I see," Karen said, gesturing dramatically at the chaos of native plants, "is a violation of HOA Code 4.7. All lawns must be maintained with appropriate grass species and kept at a height not exceeding 3 inches. Helen's smile faltered slightly, but she stood her ground, literally. "Actually, Karen, I did some research. The county passed new wildlife protection ordinances last month. Native plant gardens are now protected if they're certified as wildlife habitats." Karen felt her left eye begin its familiar stress-induced twitch. "Certified by whom exactly?" "The National Wildlife Federation," Helen replied cheerfully. "I submitted my application last Tuesday. Should hear back any day now." That afternoon, Karen sat in her home office, fingers flying across her laptop keyboard with the fury of a woman possessed. She pulled up the HOA bylaws, county ordinances, and state regulations, cross-referencing every possible loophole. There had to be something: noise complaints, property line disputes, anything that would give her the ammunition she needed. Her phone rang, interrupting her research frenzy. "Karen, it's Diane from 38 Maple," came the nervous voice. "I just wanted to let you know, I'm thinking of converting my front lawn too. Helen's garden is so beautiful, and my utility bills have been insane with all this watering." Karen's grip tightened on the phone. "Diane, surely you understand the impact this could have on our property values." "Actually, I looked it up. Native gardens can increase property values by up to 15%. Something about curb appeal and sustainability. Environmental responsibility is very popular with buyers these days." The line went dead. Karen stared at her phone, watching her reflection in the black screen. Her perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the stress lines forming around her eyes, and for the first time in years, she looked uncertain. She walked to her front window and gazed out at her own lawn, a pristine carpet of Kentucky bluegrass that required weekly chemical treatments, daily watering, and bi-weekly professional maintenance. It was perfect, orderly, controlled. So why did Helen's chaotic garden across the street suddenly look so alive? 3 weeks later, Karen stood in her driveway at 6 a.m., watching in horror as a certified mail truck pulled up to Helen's house. She'd spent sleepless nights crafting violation notices, researching obscure municipal codes, and even considering running for city council just to change the wildlife protection ordinances. But now, watching Helen sign for what could only be her wildlife habitat certification, Karen felt something crack inside her chest. "Morning, Karen," Helen called out, waving the official-looking envelope. "Perfect timing. Want to see my certification?" Against every instinct screaming in her head, Karen found herself walking across the street. Helen's garden had transformed even more dramatically. Monarch butterflies danced among the purple coneflowers, and the soft buzzing of bees created an almost hypnotic soundtrack. "Look at this," Helen said, unfolding the certificate with obvious pride. Certified Backyard Wildlife Habitat. They said my garden scored exceptionally high for biodiversity. Karen read over the official documentation, her trained eye catching every detail. It was legitimate, thorough, and completely bulletproof from an HOA standpoint. But something else caught her attention. A small paragraph about the environmental impact. It says here you've eliminated over 2,000 gallons of annual water usage, Karen said slowly. More than that, actually. And no more chemical fertilizers or pesticides. My grocery bills are down too. Turns out native plants practically take care of themselves. Helen paused, studying Karen's face. You know, you could start small. Maybe just a corner of your backyard? Karen's laugh came out sharp and bitter. Helen, I am the HOA president. I can't just abandon 3 years of lawn care standards because you've decided to go feral. Is that what you think this is about? Helen's voice carried a gentleness that made Karen uncomfortable. Karen, when was the last time you actually enjoyed your yard? Not maintained it, not worried about it, enjoyed it? The question hit harder than Karen expected. She couldn't remember the last time she'd sat on her back deck without mentally cataloging maintenance issues. Every blade of grass was a responsibility, every flower bed a potential violation waiting to happen in someone else's yard. That evening, Karen found herself researching native plants instead of HOA violations. She told herself it was reconnaissance. Know your enemy, but her browser history told a different story. Drought-resistant perennials, native pollinator gardens, water conservation through indigenous landscaping. At 2 a.m., she discovered an article about HOA communities successfully integrating wildlife habitat requirements into their covenants. Property values hadn't just maintained, they'd increased. Insurance companies offered discounts for sustainable landscaping. The county was considering tax incentives for certified wildlife habitats. Karen closed her laptop and walked to her back window. Her floodlit lawn looked like a golf course, sterile and perfect. Across the street, Helen's garden rustled with night sounds. The gentle whisper of wind through native grasses, the distant hoot of an owl that had apparently taken up residence. For the first time in months, Karen slept deeply. The next morning brought another crisis. Her phone buzzed with a text from neighborhood busybody Margaret Chen. Karen, emergency. The Johnsons just ripped up their entire front lawn. There's a dump truck full of native plants in their driveway. Karen stood at her window, watching her perfectly ordered neighborhood transform before her eyes. 3 houses now sported various stages of wildland conversion. Her authority as HOA president was crumbling, but strangely, she felt relieved. Her doorbell rang. Helen stood on the porch, holding a small potted plant with delicate purple blooms. Wild bergamot, Helen said simply. It attracts the most beautiful butterflies, and it smells like heaven when you brush against it. Just thought you might want to try one. You know, for research purposes. Karen took the pot, her fingers unconsciously stroking the soft leaves. The plant gave off a subtle, sweet fragrance that reminded her of childhood summers at her grandmother's cottage, back when gardens were wild and wonderful, before she'd learned that chaos was something to be controlled. Helen, she said quietly, that certification process. How long does it usually take? Helen's smile was radiant. For someone who knows plants as well as you do, probably just a few weeks. As Helen walked away, Karen stood holding the small plant, feeling the weight of 3 years of rigid control shifting beneath her feet. Tomorrow's HOA meeting suddenly seemed very different from what she'd originally planned.